Now, looking at particular symbols on maps and obstacles that might be in our way. So I obviously touched on the gates there. So if we zoom in, we can see that there's a bunch of gates. Looking at that map, I don't think the gate would be there. I think it'd be on this road. So that's probably slightly in the wrong position. And there's a gate showing there. I do know along this particular road, there is a lot of gates. So we did stop for probably half a dozen gates along this road. And it's usually because you're passing through different properties. So if we switch, sometimes you go, well, why would there be a gate there? And if you switch to the satellite view, sometimes you can see that there's actually a fence line running through there. So you're probably swapping from one property to another property. And in which case, this person might have cattle and this person might have sheep. Yeah, so that's probably the reason. The rule of thumb to go by is a gate is either there to keep things in or to keep things out. If it is a unlocked gate, it's there to keep things in, sheep and cattle. If it's a locked gate, it's there to keep things out, probably us, depending on the circumstances. All right, so again, and switching to that map view, then you can see that one actually has it. So this is the overland map. It does say dirt road there. So that represents as a dirt road. Now, we can see here that the Turong River that we're following is quite a sizable river. Now, it's called a river, not a creek. So that's going to tell us there's a certain amount of water that's going to flow through there. Now, if we zoom into this particular section here, you can see that this map doesn't really show us anything, but we do know that there's obviously a river is passing through it. So what's there? Now, again, on this particular map, it's not really telling us too much. However, if we swap to the New South Wales topical map, now we can see that there's something there. So that is represented as a bridge, and that tells us that there is a way to cross that river. Now, having said that, if we move a little bit further up the road, again, the topo map shows the gates slightly differently. Here you can see that we've got the same sort of thing. It just looks a bit smaller. These are cattle grids, by the way. So again, that doesn't stop us, but just tells us that there's a cattle grid there. Up here, you can see where it says there is a ford there. So ford or causeway is a chunk of concrete that basically makes it a bit easier to cross, means you're not crossing, large river stones and things like that can make it more fun. We're crossing something that's got a little more stability with it. Now, having said that, fords and causeways can be very slippery, so they're not always the better way to cross. But probably a key thing I want to point out here is all these little tiny creeks are marked on the map as being there, but they cross over the road and we don't really have any, knowledge or reason for that, or what's there. But it tells us that in high rain situations, that water is most likely going to cross the road there, and you usually do see in these little valleys like that. So that's just something to be mindful of that tells us that it might be rutty in those spots, but there's no bridge or anything. In this scenario, we can see that there is something there and there is something here. Now, I know if that bridge in particular, I can show you some footage of that. The water does still pass over the top of it. So if the river is high and there's been a lot of rain, then that may not be passable. I have seen times where that's not passable. However, if we zoom out and up the road, first thing I want to point out here is you can see the difference between these. That's actually where it turns to a sealed road. You can see it goes from orange to red. Then if we go up to Safala itself and zoom in here, we can see this says Crossley Bridge. So it's the exact same symbol as the other one. However, this is a very high bridge and is absolutely passable regardless of the amount of water in the river. How do we know the difference, though, between that and the other one? Probably the only giveaway here is that, A, it's right next to a town, and it's a fairly main road. The other one is that it's got a name. If it's been named, then it's more likely going to be more substantial, and it's probably going to be bigger, but it's probably more that the road is telling us it's the type of road is telling us that that's going to be more likely passable. And on this particular occasion, I do know that it is. It's quite a high bridge, so it'll be easily passable. Whereas these other ones, when it gets high, that is definitely not passable. Campgrounds, other things are marked out, but probably they're the key ones you want to be looking for is the type of road itself. Is it sealed or unsealed? And is it a road or is it a track? That's probably your main thing that you're going to notice the difference. The type of water that passes over it, is it a river or a creek? And is there a causeway or a ford there that's going to help us get across it? And then the other one is the gates. It's either locked or unlocked. Depending on the map, it will tell you. So see if we can find one here. You can see all these have gate symbols, but none of them say locked. And over here, we got an example. So there is a normal gate and there is a locked gate, specifically says locked. So obviously they're the ones we're not going to be able to pass. So when we find these obstacles, what do we do about it? Let's take a look.